so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about One D&D. So if you've been to the channel before, you know that I have a love-hate relationship with 5th edition. While I like that it gets a lot of new people into the hobby, I'm really not that fond of the stacks and stacks of books that come with it. I don't like a lot of the choices that were made, and I definitely don't like the direction that the later products have headed. So when they announced that One D&D was going to be coming around, I was excited to see what was going to come of it. Unfortunately, Wizards has indicated that One D&D is likely to be the last edition of D&D, meaning that it's probably going to be a living product and they're just going to do updates as they go, minor updates probably, and that 5th edition is going to be largely used for the One D&D base rule set. So there's going to be some small changes. So far we've heard that criticals and critical fumbles may change a little bit. Classes are going to be grouped more similarly to the way that they were in 2nd edition AD&D, where you have, for example, fighters and rangers and barbarians are all part of the warrior group, and then there will be a mage group and I believe they call it specialists instead of the rogue group. But yeah, there's going to be a few restrictions on multi-classing based on the stat requirements we've heard about, and I'm sure there will be a few more changes to come. But what I'm disappointed in is that 5th edition really isn't the edition that I relate to. It's not something that I enjoy playing. It's not something I enjoy DMing. I've DM'd a Curse of Strahd campaign. I've played in a homebrew campaign, and then I've read through pretty much everything through Monsters of the Multiverse. It's just not my bag. So when Wizards started talking about One D&D and the focus on a digital presence more so than previous, and they actually they bought D&D Beyond, so I'm sure that's a big part of their marketing plan with One D&D. It seems like they're going a different direction than I would have preferred, which is fine. And I looked back at the last time we had an edition change, and when Wizards went from 3rd to 4th edition, and during that time frame, a lot of players felt like I do now that they didn't like the direction that the game was heading. So a lot of them jumped on board other games, and it gave those other games a chance to thrive. So if you are feeling a little bit disillusioned with 5th edition and not excited about the prospect of playing it indefinitely, then there's going to be some other opportunities that you can explore. So now I'm going to flip over to my table and I'm going to show you 5 awesome fantasy RPG alternatives to Dungeons and Dragons. If you watch my channel at all, then you're probably familiar with the fact that I enjoy Goodman Games, especially their Dungeon Crawl Classics line. Dungeon Crawl Classics is going to be like comfort food to anybody that played a previous edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It's got a base that is built on a stripped down 3rd edition shell, while adding mechanics that bring back a feel of the grittier swords and sorcery roots of the game. Matter of fact, there is a great Lankmar component for Dungeon Crawl Classics that you can pick up, and Lankmar plays incredibly well in the Dungeon Crawl Classics system. There's also a number of awesome one-shot adventures that you can string together or play on their own. They've got a great quick start rules product, and there's some amazing campaigns that you can pick up that will give you a great starting point and plenty to explore after you do that. Your players are going to appreciate that it's just similar enough to Dungeons and Dragons to not be completely alien, and you're going to appreciate that the amount of prepping and balance work you have to do with this compared to 5th edition or One D&D, I have a feeling, is going to be very minimal, and your players are going to have a great time, and you're going to have a great time judging this game. Dungeon Crawl Classics by Goodman Games. Another great option for you if you are tired of that 5th edition grind and you don't want to continue it into One D&D is going to be Hyperborea. Now this was formerly known as the Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, but they've shortened the title to just Hyperborea for its 3rd edition, and this is a fantastic rule set, especially if you've got folks that played during Advanced Dungeons & Dragons or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, because this is like a reworking of those rule sets, adding some extra subclasses, cleaning up the rule set a little bit, adding a few more combat options, not quite as bad as what the Player's Options books did for 2nd edition, but still giving enough choices during combat that your players can feel like they're not just rolling the die every turn, they're actually having to make some decisions. The game is not as cheap as some of the others. You're going to need to get the player's manual, the referee's manual. I suggest getting the screen because there's just enough tables that you're going to want to have that. But if you do decide to dive into Hyperborea, here's what it's got going for it. It's going to be a familiar rule set. It's got an amazing setting that is going to be familiar to anyone that's read any of Appendix N. There's a lot of Clark Ashton Smith. There's some H.P. Lovecraft. There is definitely a lot of Robert E. Howard. Many of the adventures that are written for Hyperborea actually have a section at the beginning that tells you specifically which books by Appendix N authors inspired the adventure itself. And there's also this great atlas of Hyperborea that will give you a blown up map of every section. My opinion is the adventures are some of the best OSR written adventures that I have played, that I have looked at. I've read through them and they're great. And then also right now, the 2nd edition player's manuals are still readily available. If you look on eBay, you can pick them up very cheaply for a table copy for your players. There are a few changes from 2nd to 3rd edition, so they won't be exactly what you get in here, but it's close enough. If you've played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you know we used to use 1st edition materials with 2nd edition materials, and there'd be some small changes between the two, but we made it work. Same thing here. So if you're comfortable in an Advanced Dungeons and Dragons type of table, Hyperborea is going to be your best bet, and it's an amazing product. It's got some great artwork, and Jeffrey Talanian is an amazing guy, very nice guy. Also, one of the last folks to work with Gary Gygax, and it shows in his writing and it shows in his product. This is Hyperborea by Northwind Adventures. If you're a little adventurous and you want to try something unlike anything else you've ever probably played, unless you played a previous edition of RuneQuest, RuneQuest Role-Playing in Glorantha is a very interesting option. So the world of Glorantha has been around since the 60s. Greg Stafford, who sadly is no longer with us, he used it as a means of developing his writing style in the 60s. In the 70s, he had a war game that was based on it. And then in the late 70s, early 80s, he released the 1st edition of RuneQuest. Now, RuneQuest is going to be similar mechanically to Call of Cthulhu if you've played that. But where it strays is there's a heavy focus on magic. Every character has access to magic in the game. It's very human-centric, but you could still have the option to play some non-human races. The world, as I said, was incredibly deep, so much so that this Glorantha source book is just the icing on the cake when it comes to setting. There's also a 2-volume set that runs around 800 pages in a slipcase that covers every settlement of over 1,000 people in the world of Glorantha. The game is Bronze Age in its technology level. So, whereas most fantasy RPGs are going to focus on like a medieval time period, this is going to go further back. So this is more sword and sandals. And the combination of the Bronze Age plus the focus on magic and the focus on community and clan, that is going to set this apart. A lot of your players' decisions are going to be determined by the needs of their clan, not by their individual pursuits. And there's some really neat intercession mechanics in this that follow the characters during the seasons during which they are not actually adventuring, but they're actually, living a regular life, and that still impacts the game when you get back to the adventuring part. RuneQuest role-playing in Glorantha, really the only 2 books you have to have for it is the core rule book and the bestiary, but they have a number of source books. They've got a weapons and equipment guide that just came out. They've got the Red Book of Magic. They've got a couple of compilations of adventures, and they have a great starter set, which I also have. So just like Chaosium did a fantastic job on the Call of Cthulhu starter set, they also did a great job on the RuneQuest starter set. It's very similar. But RuneQuest, role-playing in Glorantha, another unique option for an alternative fantasy RPG to D&D. I know I've talked about Cipher System a little bit here lately. I am a big fan of it. I think that Monty Cook is really onto something with the simplicity yet flexibility that his system has. And for Cipher System, a great thing about this is going to be if you are wanting your players to expand their horizons into something, another genre other than strictly fantasy, then you could get them into Cipher, especially via the Godforsaken expansion, which gives you a great fantasy base. You can get them into this, teach them the game, let them play through a campaign. I'm sure they're going to enjoy it. There's tons and tons of options. Just as a thought experiment, I have created several of my favorite characters from literature in the Cipher System, and there's almost never a time where I'm left scratching my head like, how do I do that? I don't think I can do that in this system. It's that powerful. It's really good. And it's super simple to teach, super simple to play, and the prep time is very low because the involvement of the number crunching with the monsters is relatively minimal, but it's still fun. The combat is still fun and enjoyable. Then on top of that, when you add in that Monty Cook Games just re-released Talus a couple years ago for the Cipher System, and this behemoth of a book covers the entire city of Talus. It also came with a huge envelope full of handouts and different addendum to the city of Talus, but this covers the caverns and towns below Talus. That's right, I said towns below Talus because there's actually further towns below it, as well as a tower above it and the entire city itself. And it would be enough material to run an entire campaign without leaving the borders proper of the city. You can do about every type of adventure right here in this book, and so that would be another option. And as I said at the beginning, it would give you a great gateway to get players into another type of genre, because they wouldn't have to relearn anything else after they were done. They could use the same system to play a supers game or a modern game or a horror game or anything else right here in Cipher System. But Cipher, if you just wanted to do fantasy, it's still a great option. And in many ways, I have saved the best for last. Pathfinder's 2nd edition is an awesome system, and I don't think it gets enough attention because it kind of still drags around some of the baggage that's attached to the previous edition of Pathfinder, which I don't think is fair. And it also is not nearly mainstream enough to take a significant portion of the audience from Dungeons and Dragons. However, if One D&D is not your thing and you want to go a different route and you want to enjoy a different type of game, but still a game with modern design principles, Pathfinder 2nd edition is going to be an awesome choice. Pathfinder 2e, as I've talked about in previous videos, is in many ways what D&D 4th edition tried to be, but in my opinion failed. It's got the very tactical gameplay element to it that D&D 4th edition was going for, but it doesn't feel as forced or as gamey as that did. It also has the good parts of Pathfinder 1st edition going for it in that there are a number of player options. You can do just about anything you can imagine with this game system. As you see here, I've got my softbacks on the table. That's because these little pocket guides are extremely affordable, and in my experience, they just work at the table so much better than the huge books do. And so I use these exclusively at my game now. I had all the hardbacks. I ended up selling them because I never cracked them because I really like these little soft cover books, and they last. They've got everything in them that the hardcovers do, but they're just smaller form factor, and they're a lot cheaper. So the other thing that Pathfinder 2nd edition has going for it is it has some great adventure paths that are tried and true. You know, that's what made Paizo popular to begin with, was their ability to write adventures. And their adventures are not railroady, I don't think anyways, the ones that I've played. And they offer a very enjoyable play style for the players without a ton of extra prep work by the GM. The group that I'm running right now, we're going through the Abomination Vaults, which was released, I think back in the spring in a hardback form that has all 3 adventures, or you can still get the soft covers if you can find them. Also, they just released the Kingmaker campaign for 2nd edition Pathfinder, and they're always putting out new adventure paths. I haven't met one yet that I didn't enjoy. The world of Galarian, sorry. The world of Pathfinder is very interesting, especially the area around Absalom. So you've got a deep culture and mythology to work with here. You've got some great player options. You've got the take it or leave it expansions, and you've got amazing writing to pair with very sound and balanced mechanical elements to the game. So again, if you're looking to give another game a chance for a fantasy RPG because you're just not happy with Dungeons and Dragons, you're ready for a little bit of a break, Pathfinder 2nd edition, great choice. And that's how I'm going to wrap this up. This has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. If you enjoyed the content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, good gaming, and God bless.